Hello, Miss Brenda Lee.
Hello,
It's really good to see you again.
and you as well.
The last time that we talked, we were trying to get that Christmas song up to number one.
We were,
And boy, did it go to number one.
and you did it.
Oh, I didn't do anything.
Well, you helped with it.
That Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree went number one.
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
When you think of how old it truly is. And when you think it was written by a Jewish man, it truly
was.
is.
So what's remarkable about that song, and then I definitely want to get on to the greatest hits, but what's remarkable about that song is that it has been around for a long time. It is sustained. And also, it even sounds like the audio quality sounds like a song that was recorded many years ago, yet it's so good it continues to not only just linger around, but again, it's always in the top 2 or 3, and it went number
Yeah.
1 finally.
Yeah.
Like, the sustained success of that song is unlike many songs ever. At what point did you realize this song is going to just stick around for decades?
You know, I never dreamed in the world that that would be my signature song. I always thought I'm Sorry would probably be it. And that song was written by the great Johnny Marks, who was Jewish, who wrote all the great Christmas songs. And I said to him one day, I said, Johnny, you don't even believe in Christmas. I said, how are you writing these songs? He said, I don't know. But when I sit down to write, that's what comes out.
When it first came out, was it a hit? Was it a holiday hit, or did it take a while before it
It
really
took
hit?
a minute. Yes, it did.
And that's surprising, because usually a song has its biggest, when it's released, usually has a shot, and then if it doesn't hit, it's kind of done.
Yeah, well, especially back in those days. But no, it wasn't. I mean, it was played, but I'll tell you when it really took off. One of my friends called me one night and said, Brenda, have you seen the movie Home Alone? And I said, no. They said, well, your song's all over it. And I said, which song? And they said, Rockin'. And that was really the catalyst that brought it to where it is.
So that means it had to have been out 25 or 30 years before the Home Alone, right?
Probably.
Yeah. And you're right. I guess even for me, that was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That was my introduction to that song.
I'll be darned.
So you grew up as a young kid in Atlanta, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever have roots in Atlanta? Because I feel like you were traveling so much so young.
I was. Actually, I lived in a little town called Lithonia, which is maybe 18 miles from Atlanta. And I used to do a show called John Farmer and the TV Ranch Boys. And that was out of Atlanta.
So you would drive into Atlanta. Would your parents take you?
Uh-huh. My mom would take me. My dad died when I was very young. And then there was a big, huge ballroom at that time called the Sports Arena. People would go there and dance, and it was just a really fun place. And I used to sing there every Saturday night with the band from the TV station.
Where did your music passion come from?
I don't know. I've often wondered that myself. My mother could sing, but it wasn't like she sang to me or sang all the time. We had a little radio, and I remember my daddy, he loved the Yankees, Mama loved the Dodgers. So they would keep enough battery where they could do that, and then I could listen to my music. So I started listening really early.
And you think hearing your favorite songs and hearing I'm assuming AM radio, that's what motivated you to start singing? Did you have a bunch of friends? Because I feel like I watch a lot of TV because I don't have any friends. Like, that's why, and I think that's kind of why I'm funny now, too, is because I don't have a whole lot of friends, but so I had to develop that. If you're listening to a lot of music, would you just sit at the radio and listen and memorize songs and sing along?
Mm-hmm.
And was that what you would do in the evenings?
Yeah, I loved it. I had friends. You know, I was in regular school, and I had friends, but it was just, well, you probably know, it's something that drew you, and you really had no control over it.
And when you tell your mom you want to sing, publicly.
Hmm.
What is her reaction, and how does she immediately help you try to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think they saw the talent, especially my mama. My dad died when I was really young. And I think she saw the talent and she saw the want in me to want to do it. She was not the kind of person or mother that would say, "Okay, you got to sing tonight, blah blah blah." She wasn't that at all.
So she didn't push you to do it,
No, not at all.
but she encouraged you to follow your passion.
Absolutely.
And how did she do that at first?
Well, sh radio. She let me listen to what I wanted to listen to on radio. And then there was a place called the Sports Arena in Atlanta. It was, like I said, big old, huge ballroom.
But how did she get you on stage there? Like what? You just
She just asked. She
you
was
just
very brazen. She would say, "My little girl can really sing. Would you let her sing tonight?" And finally the band said, "Yeah." And I did. And I became a regular Saturday night singer. I was 10 years old.
Were you ever full of stage fright at that age, or did it feel so
Nope.
natural?
It just felt natural.
What singers did you like as a young kid that you would emulate?
I don't know that I emulated anybody, but I loved Hank Williams. Uh, I think he was probably my favorite. I loved Judy Garland, Sophie Tucker, Ella Fitzgerald. I loved all the older singers. Not that they were old then, but they were older than me. And I got to meet all of them, and that was a dream come true. And I just liked, I never could identify with kitschy songs. I liked the good songs.
You liked the mature adult songs,
I did.
which had to be a little weird for a kid to like the mature
Yeah.
adult songs.
And everybody wondered, well, why do you like those? You're 10 years old. I said, I don't know, but I do.
How long did you perform in Georgia before you started to travel around?
We moved to, okay, we were playing the Fox Theater, and Red Foley came to town. And somehow or another, he let me sing a song on the show. And at that time, he was the host of the Ozark Jubilee out of Springfield, Missouri. And he asked if I would like to come and do the show. And of course, we said yes. So it wound up, we moved there, and I became a regular.
So you moved to Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
How did you like that? Do you remember it?
I do. I liked Missouri. It was fun, and I was doing absolutely what I loved to do, going to school, too. Mama always made me go to school. It wasn't like, oh, she sings. No, that wasn't the case.
Your mom moved for you.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, she really did.
Like looking back now, is there a gratefulness to somebody who would
Oh,
sacrifice?
I couldn't. Of course, I couldn't be here without her, but I couldn't be who I am without her either, because she was my best publicity person, my best, okay, you can do this. She was my everything in my singing.
When did you start to come to Nashville?
I came to Nashville when I think I was 11 or 12.
So that was pretty quick then.
Yeah.
So you're singing in Georgia at 10.
Yeah.
You're in Missouri at 11.
Yeah.
And about a year later, you're in Nashville?
Yeah.
Do you move here, or do you come here at first just to kind of see what it's about?
We came, but we moved really quick.
Why?
Well, because there was more opportunity, there was more interest. People weren't afraid to record a child, thinking their voice might change, and you put all that energy and finance into it, and then it turns out their voice changes and they're not good anymore.
I never thought about that, but I can tell that was actually a thing by how you're describing it. So there must have been reluctance then to invest in you as a kid because they thought as you grew, your voice would change and maybe you would not be able to sing?
Yeah.
And that's what they would say?
Mm-hmm.
So who believed in you then to invest in you and go, I still believe that if there is a voice change, she'll be great.
Red Foley.
So the same Red Foley.
Same Red Foley.
What do you think he saw in you?
Goodness, nobody's ever asked me that question. I think the thing he really saw in me was the need to be able to help my family financially, and the need to be able to sing. I love to sing, and the opportunities in Georgia at that time were not. And of course, he had the Ozark Jubilee, and I couldn't turn that down.
Did you start to feel a pressure at 11, 12, 13 years old to support your family?
No.
You never felt the pressure? It was never put on you?
No.
Did you feel like you needed to do, even if there wasn't a pressure, did you feel like that's something you wanted to do?
Yes, always.
Why?
I mean, I don't know. I would have sang for nothing. You know, the money was just good too, but I just love to sing always. And where that came from, I have no clue.
When you moved to Nashville and recorded, did you soon start touring regionally or nationally?
All over the world. All over the world.
See, I don't like flying now.
I don't either.
I can't imagine flying over the ocean.
Well, you know, when you're 12.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and you don't think about that. I don't like it now, so I don't go as much as I used to.
So you go all over the world.
All over the world.
Did you feel safe as a kid singer?
Yeah. My mom was with me, my manager. So, yeah. And the band guys would protect me. I was like their little sister. Sometimes they protected me too much.
Like a little sister?
Yeah, like I couldn't get into
Yeah.
any trouble.
When did you play the Opry for the first time?
I was 10 years old. So that would have been 54 or 55. And, yeah, because I played the Opry because I had been on the Red Foley show. So when we moved to Nashville, I just went to the Opry.
Just seamlessly slid in.
Mm-hmm.
At the Ryman?
Mm-hmm.
Any other performers that you listened to or liked in that first year or so that you're playing the Opry, that they would play the Opry and you'd think it was cool to be able to see them?
I loved Patsy Cline. Loved her. Loved her heart. Loved her talent. Loved her generosity. She was not affected at all by the industry. I loved that about her. And she just kind of took me under her wing, as did Dottie West. And we were friends forever.
Did you ever get to see Hank Sr. at the Opry? Because I know he, got in some trouble and they were like, hey, don't come back around here no more. But did you ever get to see Hank Sr. at the Opry?
I did one time.
And how was that experience?
A dream.
Really?
Because, I sang all his songs and had hits with a lot of them. And to meet the guy that wrote them, it's surreal almost.
And he had to be in his early 20s, right?
Young.
At that point?
Very young.
What about Elvis?
Oh, Elvis was a trip. I loved Elvis. But he was almost like a pretend person because he was so good, you couldn't believe he was real. He was sweet, but he was firm. He knew what he wanted, knew what he liked. He wouldn't really, if he really truly believed in it, don't try to convince him of something else because that's what he was going to do.
Did you see him in town much in Nashville?
Not a whole lot. But when he came, I saw him. I went to his sessions and watched. And that's back, gosh, late 50s. That's back when we didn't have all the knobs to turn to make you sound so good.
So you had to sound good.
So
that's what was being
you
better
either
then.
sounded good or you were asked to leave.
And he was really good.
Really good.
Like pure voice.
pure voice. No knob turning, no nothing. That was him.
Who else lived here that you were excited to see or run into? Because I had those people when I moved here.
Did you?
Yeah, for sure. I moved here, and it was, for me, it was all the guys like the Chestnuts and
Yeah.
all those late '80s and '90s guys.
Oh, yeah.
And so, listen to the radio my whole life growing up, and listen to the station out of Little Rock, Arkansas, and Hot Springs, Arkansas. And when I moved here, that Joe Diffie, I got to spend a lot of time with
love
Joe.
Joe.
Yeah, and I got to know him pretty well before he died. Like we would spend time together because we'd perform. I think where we got to know each other the best was performing together at the Opry. Not at the same time, but we'd be on the
Yeah.
same night multiple times.
Wow.
And so, you know how it is at the Opry.
Yeah.
The doors are just open,
They are.
and you just spend time with the people that are there.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was exciting to get to see like the Diffies. Kix Brooks, my first time ever playing the Opry, came into the room and was like, "This is what we do here. I'm Kix." And I'm like, "You're Brooks and Dunn. This is crazy." So I wonder like those stories for you, because I had my version of that.
Yeah.
It sounds like you did too.
Oh, I did. It was like I was like the little sister, and Dottie West and
Were you the youngest by far? Were you the
yeah.
youngest
Oh, yeah.
kid?
But Dottie West, Tammy, Patsy, all the greats.
Mm.
They just took me under their wing, and I just loved them.
When you were 12 and you signed a record deal, how much did you understand what was happening with the business? And how much do you think your mom understood with the business?
My mom was pretty savvy. All I knew is I want to sing and I want to be heard. And if this is my avenue to do it and they'll let me do it, I'm all in.
Did you ever sign one of those deals that maybe wasn't the best deal and you learned later that what you had signed?
Mm-mm. I had I was lucky because I had people around me, not that many, but I did have people that truly cared and loved me, which wasn't always the case with artists.
Yeah, it seems like with young artists as well, like
Yeah, oh yeah,
they're pretty vulnerable.
they are.
Business,
They are.
personal, but it seems like you have a pretty good experience because you had good people around you.
Yes, that truly cared about me, that weren't just in it for the buck and whatever. They really cared about me, starting with Red Foley.
When you would sing "I'm Sorry," would the whole crowd sing it back? Was that a monster?
Sometimes.
Was that the coolest thing?
Yeah, that was cool. What was cool to me was if you started a song and they started, it was like, oh, Lord, this really was a good song, because you don't expect it. You want it, but at least I never did. I never expected it.
Growing up in a small town in the South and then living in the Midwest a bit in Nashville, that type of person is pretty similar. But when you're traveling the continental United States and you're in a Boston, you're in a California, and you're going, wow, or you're in Japan and you're going, this is so weird, they know my songs.
Yeah.
I mean, that had to happen to you pretty young. There are people that you're not like at all that love you and know your music.
Yeah.
That had to feel strange, but yet amazing.
It was like surreal. I remember the first time I went to Japan, I was maybe 14, maybe. And we landed at the airport, and all these young kids were standing out there, and they had these little hats on, and it said BLFC. And I thought, oh, Lord, somebody's coming in, because I love all that. And I thought, BLFC. So when I got off the plane, it meant Brenda Lee Fan Club. Mm. And I was like, oh, because I never dreamed I was known over there.
How do you think you became so well known in Japan specifically?
Well, I sang in their language, plus I spoke in their language, but I sang in English too. And I went every year to let them know I appreciated their support. And they
reciprocated it.
Yeah. big way, in a big way.
When did you start to learn Japanese?
When, let's see, I went over there the first time because I had a big hit in Japan. My first big hit was One Rainy Night in Tokyo. So Owen Bradley, my producer, he said, you know what would be good? If you sing half in English and half in Japanese. And that's what I did. And they loved it. And all of a sudden, I'm invited to tour. And I went, gosh, I bet I went 40 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've been to Japan?
At least.
I've been once, and I was blown away.
Isn't it great?
It's so great. It's clean.
Oh.
It's safe.
Yes.
People are kind. There are no trash cans because there's no litter. And if you have
No.
trash, you just keep it until you get to it. It's unbelievable.
And if you go into a department store or a drugstore or any store for that matter, and you're lost, they'll take you to where you're supposed to go. They'll say, in their language, they'll take your hand. Now, I don't know if they still do that, but that's what they did when I was going every year.
I also felt like I was 7 feet tall, and that was awesome.
Oh, yeah, I felt right at home.
It was. So you put out the Brenda Lee Greatest Hits. It's digital. People can stream it. It's also on vinyl. Why the Greatest Hits? Why now?
I don't know. The label thought it was a good thing to do, and I was proud that they thought enough to do it.
A couple things that I would think. One is this, obviously, Rockin' on the Christmas Tree went #1 again, but also I'm Sorry went completely viral on TikTok. What is old is new is old is new is old is new again.
Yeah.
And so that song was getting millions and millions of streams.
Yeah.
Has that song been sampled a lot over the years too? Do you know?
I don't know.
The Beatles opened for you. I read that.
Yeah.
Must have been, I don't know. It had to be the 50s, right?
Late
Late
50s,
50s?
early 60s.
Yeah. How did that come together? Did your mom or
No, it was a big tour. There was Dusty Springfield, me, the Beatles.
What were they at the time? At this time we're talking about specifically. I'm assuming they're very young and not.
Very young, yeah. And really kind of like I don't know, not polished, not just raw, but I saw the greatness in them. And you would have too.
And this is pre-Ed Sullivan.
Oh, yeah. So I go back to New York, and I go to my label, which was Decca, which is now MCA, which I'm still on.
Same contract.
Yeah. And I said, I took a picture of them, and they look like your normal teddy boy would look. And I took a little tape, and I'll never forget. They walked in rank and file like they do. And it got through playing, and it was very quiet. And I thought, well, this could be bad, could be good. And I said, okay, what do you think? And the president stood up and said, Brenda, we're very proud that you brought this in. But this look will never happen, and this sound won't either. Next year, they were playing the ballpark stadium, filling it up.
Like Shea Stadium.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wow. And when you saw them the first time, was Ringo with them, or was it still Pete Best?
But Pete was with them. But then Ringo came right along, so I've worked with the.
You've been there through all of it.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Do you ever listen back to any of your old music that, like, every once in a while, put something on you haven't thought about in a long time?
I do. I listen back to, like, when I started at 10, and I sound like Mickey Mouse on steroids. And I thought, oh, my Lord. But I was 10.
What would you tell that kid now?
I would tell him, if that's what you want to do, you don't give up. People might give up on you, but don't you give up on you.
And you would tell that to yourself as well? That's the advice you'd give to yourself?
Mm-hmm. Because, and I didn't know if I was good or not. I just knew I loved it, and that's what I wanted to do. So,
Were you able to be a support for any other artists like Patsy and you listed all those
mm,
wonderful women in the history of country music.
yeah,
Were you able to do that with any artists?
yeah,
Kind of repay that?
hmm yeah. And it was fun. And I don't know how to put this, but today, with all the mechanical stuff they have to
Sure.
use, you don't know if they're singing or not.
You're absolutely right.
Even I don't.
No, you're
And I
right.
can usually tell.
Same.
So if somebody asks me an opinion on somebody new, I just have to say, I don't know.
We're lucky that we can take live performances off of like somebody's phone or YouTube because there'll be people that want to come up and do my show and perform, and we've not checked if they can. We've just listened to the studio version, and they come in, and then maybe they're not as good. So what we do now is we'll do like super research and try to go find some like natural
Yeah.
just to hear if they can really sing, because when you get in the studio, obviously, like you said, you can make anybody sound pretty good.
You can.
Write a good song, make them sound pretty good. There you go.
Hey, that's how it's done.
That's what I need to. I wish they'd do that to me. Make me sound good. When you listen back to the songs from like the 50s, 60s, can you kind of hear the person you were? Like if you hear a song, for example, Losing You, early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
You're not old by any means, but you're a little
No.
older.
Yeah, I'm a little older.
Can you kind of hear that song and put yourself back to where you were
I
at that
can,
time?
because as a teenager in those years, I wasn't allowed to date or anything like that. So all I had was my music, and that was my heartbeat. And I never had the thought, oh, I'm doing this because I'm going to be a big success. I was doing it because I loved it, and it was my company. It was something that I could always turn to, that I knew would be there, and it wouldn't change, and that's why I loved it.
What's your favorite song you've ever recorded?
Oh, gosh. Owen Bradley was such a genius, and I had such wonderful songwriters. I mean, they're writing great songs today, too, don't get me wrong. But they're not writing great ballads. And, and I had a lot of foreign ballads, like I Want to Be Wanted and Losing You, and those kind of songs were overseas songs. So it was the A-team of musicians. It was Owen. It was Selby Coffeen, the engineer. It was the Anita Kerr singers. It was Brenton Banks and his strings. It was a family, which doesn't happen today. And that's why I stopped recording.
Because it felt more like a business or a machine
Yeah.
than a family?
Yeah. I mean, if you can't... I've been in the studio, and I'm just thinking it's going great, and I'm singing good and all. And one of the musicians may say, hey, everybody stop, because they heard a clunker that I didn't hear. And that's how it was back then. If you did that today, you wouldn't be working that session anymore. But it was a cohesive thing between everybody. Everybody wanted it to be good. And I think that's the difference in today and 60s.
Today, maybe mercenaries are brought in just to go and do the job and get out, get to the next session more than
You got it.
invest themselves into
Yeah.
the art.
Yeah, that's true.
You still like music? You still like just listening to music? What do you
Oh,
listen to?
I love
If you
music.
get to like just pick whatever you want to listen to, what do you pick now?
Oh, Lord. Well, my scope of musicians is a little bit weird. I like everybody from Ozzy to Frank Sinatra. I'm all out there Because I hear different things with different people, and I try to figure out, too, okay, why was that a hit? Why was that a success? And, of course, it all boils back to y'all, too. Artists can't do anything unless you play it. I mean, they can, but it's probably going to lay on a table or lay somewhere. So it's, to me, we're all a family. We're all like, I want you to do good. You want me to do good. It behooves you. It behooves me. And it's not thought of that way today in the industry, and it saddens me.
I have two final questions. Not your song, but what's your favorite song of all time? If you had to pick a favorite song, it can't be your song.
Lord.
I
That's
know.
too hard.
It's too hard. You can give me a couple, and I'll vamp for you, meaning I'll give you a couple of mine while you think about yours. Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain is one of my favorites of all
Oh,
time.
that's a great song.
Just it's perfect.
Oh,
So that, and I love ballads. I'm a big ballad guy.
I am too.
Because I can hear
I'm
the
ballad
words. I can
girl.
experience. Yeah, I feel like I can really experience them.
But I'm one of those girls too. When I was in France, of course, I didn't speak French when I first went over, but I heard this song, and it was "La va be lavabo, c'est les soirs avino," and I thought I really liked that, and I'd go up and down the sidewalk singing that song, and finally somebody tapped me on the shoulder because I was like 13, and they said, "Don't sing that." And I said, "Why? I like it." They said, "You're singing about a toilet."
What
And I
was
was
this?
like, "Oh,
What
no.
was the song? What was this? Do you even know what the toilet
I
song?
don't know."
Yeah.
But they said, "You're singing about the toilet on the
Mhm.
corner." I said, "Oh,
Well, the melody must have been good.
yeah, it was. I loved it."
Yeah. Okay. Last favorite song of all time. What is it? That's not yours. You got to pick
That's
one.
not mine.
It's not yours.
Oh, Lord, that's too
I
hard.
know. It's really hard. You don't have to commit to it, but you can just say one now.
Okay. Oh, gosh. Over the Rainbow.
Judy Garland.
Yeah.
What'd you
I
like?
finally got to meet her.
How old were you?
13.
And what was the experience? Walk me through it.
I followed her to the Sahara Hotel in Las Vegas.
What do you mean you followed her?
I mean, I was next to perform. She was laying out by the pool. And I thought, okay, this is my chance.
How old was she at the time?
Judy was probably late 20s, early 30s. I thought, if I don't go now, I'll probably never see her again in my life. So I just brazenly walk up, and I said, "Miss Garland, my name is Brenda Lee, and I am a huge, huge fan. You cannot believe how you have influenced what I do. If you had one piece of advice to give me, what would that be?" And she didn't skip a beat, and she said, "Don't let them take away your childhood."
Probably because a lot of hers was taken away.
Yeah. So that's a memory I'll never forget.
It's really kind of her to not just brush you off and actually give you
Give me
poignant.
a kernel of wonderful advice.
Brenda Lee's Greatest Hits. You can stream it. You get the vinyl. The vinyl is always really cool to have. It has I'm Sorry. It has Sweet Nothings. It has I Want to Be Wanted. 11 of the tracks on the album were in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100. You are a joy to be around.
Thank you.
My friend and I, Brett, who lives over here, he's an artist too. His name's Brett Eldridge. He sings Christmas songs.
I know who Brett
okay,
is.
just making sure. We would always see you drive around, and we would be like, "We just saw Brenda driving."
Oh.
That was kind of our way of like checking in on each other. We just saw Brenda Lee driving around, so we'd always see you driving around.
I love that. Tell him, hey.
I definitely will.
Now you know I'm Southern. Hey.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations on all your very recent success too.
Well, thank you.
It's really
Amazing.
refreshing to see that you went viral again, and you had a #1 song.
Yeah.
And that's
Who knew?
Who knew?
After all these years. That's what gets you in this business, because you don't know what's coming.
That's true.
And it's the wanting to know that just keeps you there.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
I love
much.
this 30, 40 minutes we just spent together. Thank you, Brenda.
And I love it too.
All right.
Thank you.